Howdy y'all, Redneck Sparky here. I'm sure while you've played Call of Duty, you've found something that you're just not happy about. Whether that's in Vanguard multiplayer or in Warzone, there's a lot of stuff that I'm certainly seeing that just aren't right with the game. So sit back while we discuss today the known issues and other issues we're seeing in Call of Duty. Before we get started, I'd really appreciate a like, and if you like what you're seeing and hearing, hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let's go. Specifically talking about the multiplayer issues, there's some known issues for like camo issues, care packages just being silly whenever they're dropping, some packet bursts during gameplay causing some glitching, some texture glitch on Desert Siege specifically, some of the seasonal challenges not consistently being displayed, some bullet penetration issues on Bokage, some spawn issues on Dome, riot shields not blocking damage like they should. Get rid of those things anyway. The Mortar Barrage, let's talk about that for a few seconds. One, how often do you get it out and deployed on the first try? It doesn't. I never get it out on the first try. It's usually second or third. But also the firebombing around. Some folks are still getting damage even if they're not in the fire. As well as if you're trying to use the Daniel's alternate skins, you're probably getting kicked and your game's crashing. The Polina Battle Prep skin, there's some issues with folks who have purchased it who are unable to actually use it, which is obviously a big deal because if you bought something, you should be able to use it. There's also some spawn issues on shipment. I'm not really familiar with this personally. Shipment's a small map. There's always going to be spawn issues. I don't think there's a true good way to do that. But I will say when I played it, the spawn seemed okay. There's some bug errors for server snapshot. You'll get just that message and you get kicked out of the map. There's also some dead drop issues where you're always continually awarded the top kill streak, even though it's not actually earned. So I haven't seen that. Good for you if you're getting that perk. But also there's some out-of-map exploits, as to be expected. Specifically, my heartburn is with shipment. You can hop in and out of that map way too easy. But there's other places as well that I'm just not tracking. But there's also some clan members who are having issues. Their stuff would crash when trying to send a clan invite. Of all of these, I think the biggest ones are the errors where people are still getting damaged when they shouldn't be, of course dropping that mortar, and whenever you're able to get out of the map and back into the map and exploit that glitch. Now on to some of the issues most of us care about more, specifically Warzone. Some of those known issues are where players are experiencing some kind of visual inconsistency, how Call of Duty puts it. Basically, you pick up a gun, and it looks like the gun's an alien spiky gun that just is awful. It looks like it was poorly rendered, and it's not a gun that's actually usable. I've seen this I don't know how many times. I've actually featured this exclusively on a video recently. But also there's some audio issues, where audio is dropping in and out for players. I've had this, not as often, but it is something that's really frustrating and annoying, because I don't know if it's my headset, if it's maybe my game, I don't know. Now that I do know this is a tracked issue, at least Call of Duty's doing something about it, even though that is extremely frustrating. I haven't had it lead to my death yet, but it is something that's eventually going to happen, if not already. With the audio, there's inconsistent audio for various things, such as planes and bombing runs and kill streaks. How many times have you heard the strafe run, and it sounds like your eardrums are about to be blown? It sounds like you're actually in the mix of war. Well, it's not intended for the game. I think they're going to be adjusting those audio levels here soon. But also, they've adjusted the top secret contract. Specifically, you can't use it as of 10 December because it was providing unintended cash and XP rewards, which is obviously a big no-go. Maybe some people can exploit that to get a bigger edge. However, I don't see how extra cash in-game is going to help you right now, given loadouts are coming a little later, but that's not really an issue. That's an intended feature that definitely needs to be addressed. But I digress. There are some issues where players are seeing a splash screen warning for the upcoming maintenance, like whenever the game first launched, that is not meant to be shown. I think this is primarily on console, but there are some PC players experiencing this as well. Bottom line is, for those of you who are still asking if the new Warzone map is out, it is. And if you're getting that screen, just push through it. That happened to me a few times, and I finally got through. There's some voice chat issues as well, where attempting to communicate across platforms don't always work. So, again, restart your game, refresh your connection, and make sure you're able to speak to your teammates. if you're actually trying to speak to them. There's some lower than intended amounts of XP gained by players. This specifically isn't a known issue on what activities it is. It could be with everything, it could be with some things. It doesn't really specify, and I wasn't really aware because everything seems like it's going smooth, but for the most part, I've been playing on double XP and stuff, so if it's happening to you, certainly let me know. There's also some console-specific errors. For example, if you're playing on a console with controller, which why would you not, the controller can be disconnected mid-match, and the game has to be restarted in order to reconnect the controller. You can't actually reconnect and then just hop right back in and go off like you would on literally any other game there's ever been. But with PlayStation, they're also looking into various performance-related issues on the PlayStation itself. There's been a lot of folks that even at launch said that they can't get into the game, it's been crashing, and it's been freezing, and they just can't launch Warzone at all on their PlayStation without just ultimately not being able to do anything and wasting time. And of course, just like multiplayer, players are finding various spots throughout the map that they can exploit and do peek, shoot through X, Y, and Z. You know, the typical stuff that everybody does on a new map. I have to say, I was expecting this, and I'm not surprised it's something that they have to look into. But of course, those are the known things, those that are identified on the Call of Duty trailer boards that they're trying to look into and find. I'm sure there's a lot more out there that we're all seeing. For example, the issues that you may be having may be silenced at your level. Unless you're sharing it outside of your friend's channel, not many people likely know that. And if it's a more rare issue, the chances of Call of Duty fixing it are slim because they probably won't find it and recognize it, especially whenever some of the top streamers and content creators aren't having most of these issues that we've already talked about. Chances are not many people know about it. And if they do, they're just not sharing it through the channels that need to happen. So, one, I encourage you to report the issues through the Call of Duty available options so that they can at least be reported. And then for two, I recommend everybody that's having issues go to that, report the same, but also look for existing issues that may not have a lot of audience on it yet. Once there's a lot of folks that get into it and start identifying, hey, yeah, I'm having this issue too, Call of Duty is going to put a little more priority on fixing that issue. I'm confident that the developers aren't trying to give us a bad game. A lot of people like to say, why would they release a game that's unpolished? Well, one, they're trying to make money, so they're not going to give you the best quality thing, knowing that they have time throughout the seasons to fix those issues as they come up. But two, they're not going to fix the issues if nobody's crying about it. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and that's how we have to act on these cases. But now let's focus on the things that are more intended in the game than they are just bugs or glitches or poor development of the game. The very first one we'll cover is the loadout change. Now, we all know you can't buy a loadout until the free loadout has dropped in Warzone, which I will admit at first I thought was a fantastic idea, because how many people would just get that perfect drop and then have the cash to get their loadout and then just run the map whenever everybody's still struggling to get cash? Maybe you dropped at a hot drop, so the cash was sniped as soon as you dropped, and even if you survived, that doesn't mean you have enough money for a loadout. But two, another team could come up who dropped at a completely cold drop, gotten their loadout, and then flanked everybody just to take you out. But again, that's a situation all in itself. The bottom line is loadouts should be available to players, I would even say, at the end of the first round, if not sooner, because the play is so slow. It's just awful. Sure, Resurgence is a little different. That one's a little more fun, even without the loadouts, and I'd be willing to say that loadouts shouldn't be in Resurgence at all, because the ground loot is somewhat okay. But whenever you're talking about the full-blown Caldera map, and you don't have a loadout for the first 10 minutes, that's a major problem. Because on normal circumstances, 10 minutes would be half the game for me. A 20-minute game would be about the longest I'd ever play, and half the game without your loadout is really silly, especially whenever you start talking about the smaller teams in the latter half of the game, only then having their loadout. That's certainly slow enough as it is. But whenever the most action you see is whenever you first drop in, that's poor gameplay. They definitely need to adjust it. Now, maybe it's not immediately available like we've seen in the past, but it definitely needs to be sooner. Let's also talk about some of the score streaks or kill streaks. Specifically, I would love to see a change to UAV. How many times have you been playing and it's been maybe 3-5 minutes that you've started and next thing you know, somebody's got an advanced UAV. Somebody popped up 4 UAVs in a row because they've got the cash. Sure, this is very likely the fact that they can't buy a loadout, so they're spending their money until they get their free one, but I definitely feel like UAVs should cost more, something that's going to be less of an incentive to just buy all at the same time, and more for late game, because in my mind, that's when they're useful. Yeah, you can have a UAV at any point in the game, and that will allow you to see other players, especially if they don't have their loadout or ghost. But what's the point? If you don't have your loadout, then you can see players on the map as they're shooting anyway. So why engage with a UAV if you can already see them? That doesn't make sense to me. But regardless of your playstyle, that's just my opinion. If UAVs were a little more expensive and encourage players to buy them less frequently, I think it'd be a good add to the game. Now let's talk about the big one, something that a lot of players have mixed feelings on, specifically the FOV option on PC that's not available on consoles. I'll say, yes, I support the fact that if you want better availability in your game, more options and such, a PC is the way to go. But that's not most viable for those casual players that are just, maybe playing a couple nights a week. Why would they spend the money on a PC just to then neglect any upkeep they have with that PC because they only play a couple nights and for one game? That doesn't make sense. If you're a PC gamer, you're probably engaged with a lot more games than just this one, and sure, that is a gateway for gamers to get more PC oriented, but again, for those casual players, they're just not going to do it. It's never going to happen. So anytime it comes with crossplay, you should probably keep things fair and level. Yeah, sure, you can still be good on a console, especially against PC players, because not everybody's on the professional level, and there's a lot of casual gamers out there. But at the same time, why should a PC player have a better FOV than a console player, only to get that little bit of an edge on them, and most of the time have the upper hand? Again, though, I say this is more of a less issue. It's, I think, blown up because it is a popular thing, and I will 100% say that you can play the game without the FOV slider. If you're on console and you're frustrated because you think PC gamers are getting to you, well, it's not just that. They're largely better because they're doing it a lot more often. And that's what's going to make this game better for you, is practice makes perfect, right? You see those professional content creators and streamers who are much better than I am, who are making good videos of however many kills they're getting because that's their job, If your job was to, bake a cake forever, then your cakes should be the best cakes ever. Otherwise, if you just bake a cake every weekend, they're probably just going to be okay, But I can certainly say that the FOV option that the PC players isn't going to make that big of a difference in the long run. But let's talk about the biggest one in my mind, the Ricochet Anti-Cheat. Specifically, everybody thought this was going to be the saving grace for Warzone, but in reality, I was a little hesitant, and I think for good reason, as we're seeing today. It's not preventing hackers like everybody assumed it would. In fact, like I've said before, the code was released prior to the launch. Something that was concerning from my perspective certainly should have been everybody's. But two, I personally believe Ricochet Anti-Cheat isn't actually a proactive software or hacker-proof system. In fact, I think it's reactive. I think it only detects when hacking is occurring based on certain, keywords and such that might be running through the stream of the network path for the hacker. But I think it's only identifying those for known hacking softwares and so on. Specifically, I think those hackers in the game currently, if they're using something unrecognized, are going to be okay and survive the anti-cheat. I don't think they're going to get detected right now, at least. I think they will be eventually. But it's not preventing hacking. It's only reacting to hacking. How many times have we seen our favorite streamer find a hacker? I mean, it's not that many, sure, but it is something that's happening. And if we don't address it, then it's not going to get solved, even with Ricochet Anti-Cheat. At the end of the day, Call of Duty is going to say, well, we did our best, but their best is obviously not up to what we need. But I'm most curious about your thoughts. Hit me down in the comments below what issues you're seeing or anything that you're just unhappy with on the game right now. As well as take a clip and send it to me on Twitter. I'd love to hear your thoughts and share amongst the community what issues you're seeing so we can really highlight them and get Call of Duty active on those. This is all we've got for today. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want more, and hit that bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I release new content. This is Redneck Sparky. It's been real. I'm out.